Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. I'm Vishan Chakrabarty. I'm the director of the Center for Urban Real Estate here at Columbia, and I run the Masters of Science in Real Estate Development program. Today is May, which is a beautiful thing, and this is a beautiful campus, and I hope you enjoyed it when you walked in. Thank you. And tonight is a real celebration. It is a celebration of the fact that we founded CURE just 2 short years ago. 2 years ago, and actually thanks to all of you and everything that you do, it's already become something very, very special, something very important, and for those of you who don't know it so well, we're hoping to give you a little bit more information about it tonight. We found CURE on the basic idea that you are all heroes. You are all heroes for what you do every day. You are not heroes because you are supporters of CURE. You are not heroes necessarily even because you donate money to CURE, not that there's anything wrong with that. You are not even heroes because by some mysterious reason, many of you are clients of ours at SHOP. You are actually heroes because of what you do every day. The fight that you do every day when you get out of bed every morning and you try to build our cities. You and people like you all around the world are heroes. You are heroes because you're building a more prosperous, more sustainable, transit-oriented, and if you're building affordable housing or affordable office space, more equitable place for our society to inhabit. And I, for one, am kind of tired of the number of naysayers who keep telling us that, who basically are trying to demonize our industry. And so one of the reasons that we founded CURE is to be able to explain to the general public, to explain to policymakers, to explain to the world the value of what all of you do. Now, none of this would be possible without our great dean, Mark Wigley, who's going to speak a little later, who has been an ardent supporter of ours, and without Mark Holliday, the chair of our industry advisory board, and I am the Holliday Professor of Development here at Columbia, and he's been an extraordinary supporter of ours. So thank you, Mark. Without MaryAnne Ty, who's the vice chair of our industry advisory board, and last year's keynote speaker, and I'm terribly worried because I've run out of MaryAnne's to invite as the keynote speaker. And other members of our industry advisory board, Andy Stone, who's here tonight, Gene Cohn, who I think couldn't make it at the last minute, and a number of others. So tonight we're going to celebrate this particular community, but we're also going to celebrate a specific part of the world. Our 2 next speakers do a lot of work in Brooklyn, and I happen to believe that Brooklyn's extraordinarily important for the future of our city, so we're sort of celebrating Brooklyn a little bit tonight. Now, for a few of you, you may not understand, Brooklyn is that vast territory that your seaplane flies over en route to the Hamptons, just in case that is a question for a couple of you. But I think our next speakers are going to try to disabuse you of that particular version of Brooklyn and talk about the extraordinary things that they've done there. And the world is changing. Last night I was at an event with Bruce Beal, the president of Related Companies in Williamsburg, who was explaining to someone that he was a member of this community. And if you know Bruce, that is an extraordinary stretch. So things are changing. And so a lot of that has to do with these 2 next speakers. MaryAnne Gilmartin, our keynote speaker, who I'm so happy that she could make it here tonight on this celebratory event for her. Really, I think the first major speech she's given as the new Chief Executive Officer of Forest City Ratner Company. So, MaryAnne. And here to introduce her is our friend and the visionary behind places like Dumbo and the Domino Sugar Refinery, a true visionary, I think, in terms of the building of cities, and certainly a vision of sartorial splendor, my friend Jed Walentis, Vice President of Two Trees Management, who's going to now introduce MaryAnne. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vishan. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to congratulate everyone associated with CURE on building just an amazing organization up here. I think it's a great thing for our city. The spirit of entrepreneurialism and urbanism is going to prove a great thing for our city as you continue to build on the momentum you already have. I'd also like to thank Vishan. I cannot go through a meeting with Vishan in his office without him using at least 3 words that I don't understand. Now, I couldn't get into Columbia. I went to another school down in Philadelphia. But I'm deeply appreciative that in his book, it's mostly charts and graphs. So people like us, even me, that couldn't get into Columbia, I would urge you all to check out the book. There's not that much type. It's a little like the New York Post. You'll make your way through it. It's excellent. But more importantly, I'm here to talk about MaryAnne. I called her office. They sent me her bio. It talks about all of her awards and accolades. She's the best at this. She got this award, that award, more awards. She's taken over for Bruce as CEO. She's built Barclays. She built the New York Times building. She built the Geary building downtown. But I think what gets a little lost, I think when outsiders look at our industry, our projects are really our legacy to the outside world. And I think that makes a lot of sense. But for those of us who do this all day, every day, we really understand what a personal impact people and leadership have on these projects. And I know Vishan and the other architects in this room won't love this statement, and I'm certainly a little biased, but I think strong principles are what make great projects in this city, more than architects or builders or other things. And I think the projects that Forest City has done under MaryAnne's leadership, their sense of place, their adaptability to the city, their care and concern for their urban environment in terms of making this city a better place, comes from the people who are running those projects. And I think that nobody does it better than MaryAnne. I think Forest City is incredibly lucky to have her. Downtown Brooklyn is certainly lucky to have her. She's been an incredible friend and mentor to us. I remember when I was about 24 or 5 years old, and nobody knew or cared who we were. MaryAnne was always incredibly generous with her time and thoughtfulness, and treated us very much like colleagues and not as competitors, and was always very meaningful on us. And I think that's how she approaches everything that she does. And I think it's, unless you do this every day, you don't understand how much human touch there are in all these projects, how many human decisions there are. And the projects that come out well are because of those decisions. They're because of those incredibly human decisions. And when you go and see the Barclays Center and you understand how well it functions from a staff standpoint, from a user standpoint, from how it fits into its neighborhood standpoint, from a transportation standpoint, from an architectural standpoint, from a buildability, and how did they pay for this, and how did they, right? The number of factors that you have to integrate and synthesize as a developer are kind of overwhelming. And to do it in a way that really benefits our city, I think, is what MaryAnne understands better than most of us. She's generous in spirit. She's true to her convictions. She's tough as nails. And I think she's the best. So, MaryAnne, come and share your words. But it's a pleasure to introduce you.
Thank you, Jed. And thank you, CURE, for the invitation tonight. I'm honored to be here, and I applaud you for the work that you've done. You've set new standards for how we all think about the urban environment. You know, for me, these past few weeks have been about dramatic changes and new starts. And I want to address another great first here tonight. A first declaration of love amongst developers. Truth be told, I adore Jed, his projects, his passion, his persona. It is living proof that we developers don't eat our young or our competition. We are kinder and gentler breed than we are given credit for. So tonight I salute Jed and all the developers among us. We are better than our rap, and we have great power to influence, motivate, and activate public policy to produce real change. So let our disruption be so seismic that we affect change and ignite real progress in our great city. So what better place to start with my thoughts this evening than with a quote from Vishan's new book, A Country of Cities. Vishan writes, America's so-called urbanists, broadly defined as urban planners, architects engaged in city building, and urban theorists, paradoxically tend to be enthralled with density, yet enraged by real estate development. In fact, he tells us, it is a common trope in most schools of architecture and urban planning today to believe that density is good, but development is bad. Vishan is too polite. I think he means that developers are bad. And tonight, if you will, follow me through the dark side for a glimpse into my world. When I started out a generation ago, being a developer was one step above being a car salesman. Not exactly what I would call a higher calling. So what happened? What changed? What shaped our modern sense of development and developers? In New York, along with other parts of the country, large-scale development that took place in the late 19th, early 20th centuries had an expansionist quality to it, an urban version of the manifest destiny that was driving the nation westward. Arguably, the greatest New York City development in this period was transportation-based. East River bridges, the start of an extensive rail system, above ground and then under, with the opening of the IRT in 1904. These projects, along with a series of urban parks and parkways, became the foundation for future development, creating hubs, landscapes, and urban experiences that are very much part of the city's fabric today. At the same time, the City Beautiful movement established a basis for design that was unprecedented. It focused cities on urban planning. It created a sense of how a city should function, which was as important, if not more important, than any individual building. It also gave way to a romantic ideal that rural and suburban areas could somehow handle affordable housing, and it would be built as the Second World War came to a close. This was a time of new thinking. How would we facilitate a new generation of growth? All of us in this room grew up with the legacy of Robert Moses, both the ongoing impact of his projects and the interpretation of his life's work by Robert Caro nearly 30 years ago. Moses, more than any one individual, shaped our idea of modern developers. Relentless push forward, spare no enemies or friends, drive to get it done. Whether a parkway, highway, bridge, or a future neighborhood, what's most striking about Moses is how connected he was to a larger, progressive effort to rethink the urban environment. Even when that vision was fatally flawed because of the manners in which race and poverty were addressed. This zeal to clean up the urban environment gave birth to some of the worst urban planning and architectural buildings that the city has ever built. Just the names of some of these projects suggest an escape from the city, a stroll in the country, a city within a city, Parkchester, Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town, Riverton Houses, just to name those built by MetLife alone. The city's reactively progressive effort to eradicate horrific living conditions, create more affordable housing and public amenities, paved the way for boldly selfish, large-scale complexes. These developments were not really of the city. They were subtly hidden within the city, and they were segregated and inward-looking. As Charles Bagley explains in his new book, Stuyvesant Town was heralded as an oasis, a reprieve from city life. Yet, as Charles notes, Lewis Mumford likened the complex to an architecture of the police state, a caricature of urban building. In contrast to these projects and to Robert Moses, who personifies the developer, even though he was not a developer, stands, of course, Jane Jacobs. Opponents to large-scale development often cite Jane Jacobs, her battle with Moses, and they embrace her as one of their own. It may surprise some here, given my developer DNA, that I identify much more with Jane Jacobs than Robert Moses. While we differ significantly when it comes to scale, for me, Jane Jacobs is the mother of mixed use. Her wonderful gender-based appreciation for an interconnected life at the heart of all great cities is something that all women, working mothers in particular, appreciate and even pine for. As a developer, or at least as a female developer, I see mixed use as my lean-in moment, a call to action that recognizes what we need to do. Create great places in and around mass transit. Create great places that are dynamic, where lots of types of people are engaged in lots of types of different activities. Great places where the jewels of urban living are alive and well. Jane Jacobs Ballet on Hudson Street, with mothers, nannies, school kids, shop owners, working people, was very low rise, yet its essence resonates still. The sense of what's desirable for a great city is also essential for New York to keep it standing as one of the greatest and most relevant 21st century cities. We must create environments that emulate the magical sense of place that Jane Jacobs celebrated. To my mind, the modern aspirational redux on Jane Jacobs is to do this with well-designed, intelligent, mixed-use buildings that not only reach higher into the sky, but also deeper into our imaginations. We really have no choice but to imagine a different landscape, a different skyscape. Think about it. 1 million more people will live in New York City by 2025, only 12 years from now. That growth is a testament to the vitality of New York. The ongoing modernization of America is a modern movement worth rallying for. And each and every one of the visionaries in this room have a huge role in that call to action. We must think about it, speak to it, and work for it. Urban life under this construct translates into better city living, better ways to deal with one of the most dire problems that we face as a city: quality housing for low and middle income New Yorkers. Hyperdense, mixed-use places, if designed properly, with generous public spaces, proximity to parks, schools, and a wide range of retail and entertainment, does not make for a Blade Runner city. To the contrary, bringing density to the urban core creates both possibility and opportunity for our city. Take a critical transportation hub like Atlantic Yards. Decades of costly infrastructure needs, important mass transit upgrades, and massive blight translated into decades of inertia. After toiling away for nearly 9 years with tireless government support and relentless developer determination, a stress-tested, successful public-private partnership has finally kicked off and celebrated one of the more important transit-oriented, highly sustainable, large-scale, density-driven developments in this city's history. Is this perhaps a paradigm for the modern metropolis? High-rise living has become more synonymous with high-end living, but density can help. It can help with affordable housing, to create more housing where people of diverse means can live closer to the urban core. While there's been a lot written about Barclays Center since it opened in September, most of it positive, I might add, I'm pleased to report that it is the housing component that will truly revolutionize the project. Every city developer, especially affordable housing developers, know that there are 3 hard truths that plague us: the high cost of land, the high cost of materials, and the high cost of labor. For Atlantic Yards, an even more complicated scenario exists. Add the cost of building a platform, a rail yard, and a variety of other transit infrastructure improvements. Even with city and state support, there are extraordinary expenses involved. The 8 million square foot project, including an arena, 6,400 units of housing, 15 residential buildings, easily meets Vachon's definition of hyperdensity. More critical to the project is the 2,250 units of affordable housing. And working with advocates, we developed new income bands to ensure broad diversity of affordability. All units, regardless of income, will be spread throughout the building and have the same fit and finish and share the same access to open space and amenities. Now, truth be told, this level of affordability, coupled with the massive and ever-growing infrastructure costs, presented many, many economic challenges for us, especially as the Great Recession took hold. But at the same time that we were confronted with economic difficulties, there was the brutal burden of litigation and project delays. We had to rethink how we might achieve our goals while improving efficiency and cost effectiveness, while at the same time reducing community impact. But how does one really innovate in a field where innovation might be characterized as the introduction of porta potties mid-rise on a construction tower? With all of the radical improvements in technology, construction is still a craft. For our city believed we needed a game changer to complete our vision. There have been few in the industry over the years. The last and most significant might in fact have been the elevator. Despite the tall order, 2 years ago we set out to find that game changer. With our partners at SHOP and at ARUP, with union labor, we opted for radical intervention. Following an extraordinary and expensive R&D initiative, we identified a modern means of construction without compromising the integrity of the building, namely high-rise modular. And we did this while delivering on our commitment to world-class architecture and enthusiastically embracing sustainability. Last December, we announced that B2 would be the city's first high-rise modular building and the tallest in the world. We believe just as development was transformed by the elevator, modular will transform the way we build housing, with greater savings, dramatically less impact to the community and the environment. This spring, we'll open a modular factory in the Brooklyn Navy Yard to fabricate those modules. And as part of this great process, we've identified 5 major breakthroughs. Prefabrication to the extreme. Our mods leave the factory fully fitted out with all final apartment finishes. Think of it as shrink-wrapped, delivered 3 miles from where it was made to the site. We have self-healing facade. Our facade, including the windows, are installed and attached to the modules in the factory. Once the modules trucked to the building and hoisted into place with a crane, adjacent modules have facade panels that interlock with gasket technology. No welding, no concrete, no pipe sweating. Many of the issues that drive costs for high-rise construction. They're both time-consuming and risky. All connections are bolted or use a press-fit connection. Pre-cutting and kitting. For the factory and the field, there's 4D computer modeling that will allow the process of innovation to unfold in a way that materials are prepared for assembly in the fabrication facility and in the field. High-rise structural solution. Our mods are prefabricated using structural steel rather than wood frames or standard steel frames. This savings generated in this process should be up to 20%, if not more, and it will significantly help with the development of affordable housing throughout the city. The added benefit is that modular produces 70 to 90% less waste than traditional building methods and can reduce energy consumption by up to 70%. Vashon and others have called for a new paradigm, one that recognizes that big is good. Hyperdensity can allow for quality housing and more affordability while reducing the overall impact to the environment. Atlantic Yards is just one of many exciting projects around the city and the country that I hope will go a long way to encourage policymakers, developers, architects, designers, and academics that we can make a radical shift in how we build, to celebrate how we really want to live and must live in our great cities. Today, the city beautiful that appeals to each of us is the very same city for each of us. Sustainable and safe communities, rich with diversity of ideas and opportunities, where a life well lived is possible for ourselves and those that we care about. On a final note, let me bring it closer to home. After raising our family for over 15 years in a bucolic suburb, my husband and I are moving back to Brooklyn. And with us, we bring 3 children, 3 dogs, a bird, and a fish. And perhaps I should have started here, for our family Eureka couldn't be a finer example of everything that I've tried to articulate tonight. The city is the place where we want to be, where millions of others want to be. The city has been our past, and most certainly it is more than ever our future. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for having me.